Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and welcome to our show today. Now, if you've been with us for the last couple of years, you will realize what we do on our program is we like to take one individual film and critique, analyze, analyze, and have a conversation about that. Me and a special guest, which the special guest will be different every show, will just kind of ruminate about these films out there. Most of them will be films you may be familiar with, while others are films that you probably have just heard of cursory and probably never bothered to watch, which may be the case with the film that we're going to be discussing today. But the reason why we do this is because there are so many great films out there that a lot of people have not seen, whether or not they just did not get the release that they should have gotten, or that they were sequels upon sequels upon sequels of very popular franchises. And we all know, all of us horror fans know, that sometimes by the time they get to sequel number 3, 4, 5, 6, we kind of lose interest in a lot of these long running franchises and we just kind of don't bother with them. That being said, our special theme this month, which we've never done anything like this before on the program before, is that we are focusing on franchise films. So with a particular franchise, we are doing an individual episode for each film within that franchise. And then we are releasing all of those episodes in the same day so that you as the audience can be able to choose and pick which episodes you'd like to listen to based on your interest in those particular films and particular franchise. This being said, we do hope that you listen to all the episodes regarding that particular franchise because it could be an eye-opening experience to hear from us what we think about each individual film as we discuss, critique, analyze, and have a conversation about that. All right. So the franchise we are focusing on today is the Maniac Cop franchise. And the film in that franchise that we are actually going to be discussing in this episode is Maniac Cop 3, The Badge of Silence from 1992. This one came out just a couple years after the last one, but we have some interesting things to talk about on this film. And to help me discuss Maniac Cop 3 is Dave Watkins, and we have had some major conversations about Maniac Cop 1 and Maniac Cop 2, so this one will be a very interesting conversation. Thank you, Jay, for joining me on this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, man. This will be a good one.
All right. So we know a lot of you out there may or may not have seen Maniac Cop 3. It is the third and final film in this franchise. After this one, there was not another one that was made. And then, of course, this franchise kind of got, I don't know if it's been completely forgotten, but it's kind of been overlooked in the 30 years
Yeah.
since the movie was originally released. So.
There has been some talk about doing a remake. I have seen they've been considering it for a little while. There's not anything official yet, but they have been considering doing a remake, which I think would be a good idea.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting doing a remake in this climate right now in regards
Yeah.
to police brutality, the way that the police force is much different now than it was in the 90s or late 80s when the first film was actually released. So it'll be very interesting for them to do a remake of the film. So, but
Well, it's funny. Like in some ways, it's the same. In some ways, it's different. But it's there. It kind of comes and goes in waves. Like when you get that police brutality stuff.
mm, yeah.
Things, but it is different. It would be a little different climate, but I think it would work.
Yeah. Oh no, I think you could find a way to and make it work in this day and age. Most people will. Uh, I don't think that it would be worth doing if you didn't comment on the way everything is ran in this day and age and how the police force and everyone, the public looks upon the police force in this modern day light. I think you'd have to do it that way or it wouldn't be any good.
Well, that might be one. I know, like Larry Cohen wrote these with William Lustig, who's the director, but he was always doing the political like commentary.
Mhm.
It may not be as advisable to do it now because it kind of it may be easier to do this as a straight slasher and then maybe build a different audience. But like you're right, the movie would be better with like sometimes people don't want that really deep political commentary. They want it to be more surface level for them to enjoy it. Because if it gets too deep, and too philosophical about it, then they feel like they're being preached to a little bit.
That is a line that is towed in these films, considering that they have a political ideology behind them, and like we already discussed, William Lustig and Larry Cohen had put that repeatedly in lots of their films. So when you're watching their films, you have an ideal that that's something of that nature will be in the film, no matter what film they tackle. Best way to put it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
So, moving to Maniac Cop 3, this was a straight to DVD flick. Following the second film that was a straight to DVD flick. What were some of your thoughts about seeing this film? Because I know we've discussed that you saw this film as like the first one you saw
Right.
on
Yeah.
cable, played over a billion times. Tell us a little bit about
Right.
that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it used to come on, I think, HBO all the time. I thought it looked like the look of it is really cool. The Maniac Cop, for the most part, looks pretty solid in it. There's some of the best scenes in this film that are in any of the Maniac Cop movies. There's several scenes that are really strong, but there's also a lot of really bad stuff in the film too. And there's a reason for that, which I'll tell you about here in a little bit. But as far as like the sequence, I saw this first, and it played it several times. I think maybe saw the last half of it several times. A lot of it takes place inside of a hospital, so it
Mm-hmm.
kind of has that kind of hospital vibe going on. Um, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was fairly solid. I mean, I did feel like it was maybe the third in a series. Saying that it definitely didn't feel like the first, but it was. You could tell there was some kind of depreciation going on that it was the third one. But I still thought it's a pretty creepy character. The Maniac Cop. He looks the way that he's lit most of the time, and this one looks pretty convincing or pretty eerie.
So in this film, I do have to say that it is the most different out of all of them because the Maniac Cop, Matt Cordell, who is now officially a zombie because he did raise from the grave, uh, is it's a different animal because the fact that he is not nearly motivated by his motivation for this film is really skewed.
Yeah, it's different.
Um,
It's different than the other ones. It kind of becomes almost like Bride of Frankenstein shit going on all of a sudden.
Yeah, yeah, because he at the end of the second film, which this film does start off with, the end of the second film, Matt Cordell is being buried in his grave, and of course you are hearing the chanting of he's not voodoo, I forget, it's not voodoo, it's
Is
a
it,
mixture of Haitian,
is it
uh
hoodoo? Is it? Yeah,
it may be a little bit like hoodoo, but we're gonna call it's
yeah,
definitely not voodoo, it's more like hoodoo. He's being brought back to life because he has I don't know why exactly he was brought back to life. They don't really say why he was brought back to life when he just they Hugon, is it Hugon? I think it's
yeah. I get
Hugon.
who gone. I can't pronounce it, man.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say Hugon.
Yeah,
Hugon raises him because he can. Like he mentions that if Cordell didn't want to be raised, then he wouldn't have been able to raise him from the dead. But he does come back from the dead, and of course, at the end of the second film, we see him bust through his coffin in the grave and steal his badge. We now know that he was raised from the dead by Hugon to do that. But then it's weird because Hugon doesn't really have like a goal for him once he raises him. He could do it, so he did it. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so it's really odd for this one. So the Maniac Cop kind of feels a little aimless for a while there until we introduce the female cop, who is now the way I don't want to say mentor mentee, but what Kate Sullivan, who is this cop who's like just like McKinney. So when we see McKinney, he is first being introduced at a shooting range, and he meets Susan Sullivan,
Yeah.
Sullivan.
Katie Sullivan. Yeah,
And so Sullivan
yeah,
is this character that at one point before all this, he was almost like a mentor to. He knows her family. He knows all this background with this cop, this fellow cop, but this cop also does things outside the norm. So she's very much like Cordell was. He did a lot of things outside the norm. So there's this parallel cop thing that's between Cordell, who's an older cop, and Kate Katie, who is not a rookie because she's been on the force like 3 years. I think they mentioned she's been on the force for 3 years. So there's this parallel that plays into the story overall. She is a no not she uses illegal guns that she shouldn't be using, and that gets her into trouble when she tries to stop a robbery happening at a drugstore with a drug addict, which is played by Jackie Earl Haley, which I didn't know he was in
Yeah.
the movie till I was like, oh my god, this is an early role for him. But he's playing someone called Frank Jessup, and Frank Jessup is drugged out of his mind, and he's robbing this drugstore and taking drugs as he's robbing it. Like that's like, dude, that's why don't you just
Yeah.
steal the stuff and then leave? But no, he doesn't want to leave. He's just taking drugs, and she finds a way in to stop this guy by using some illegal guns and elaborately jumping through a sunroof or a sun. What do you call those things? Is it sunroof or a sun window? I don't even know what they call
Yeah,
those things.
yeah. It's like a yeah, shit.
I don't know what they're
It's a
called either.
sun window. Yeah, I know what they're called. It's
I'm trying
but
to think
yeah,
of it.
it's basically there's yeah, it's shit.
It's really cool though because
Sunlight, sunlight, sunlight. And
she's really cool.
there's a yeah. It's a really like yeah, it's a really bold move, and you could it probably should have gotten her killed, but she jumps down through there, and then she's able to recover quick enough to take him, to get him. Like I guess she shoots him. It doesn't kill him yet,
No, it doesn't
but she
kill him.
thinks yeah, she thinks everything's cool.
She thinks everything's cool. But his hostage, which is the reason why she didn't just shoot him before, because he's got a hostage, ends up being the reason how Jessup got into the drugstore, anyways. So it was an inside job. And as
Yeah,
the
it's like,
Jessup's girlfriend slash the clerk, who's the inside woman,
yeah,
shoots Kate, and Kate shoots her back, killing her, and it's all
yeah,
being
yeah,
filmed by these unscrupulous cameramen for their Inside Edition or their news magazine. All of it's being filmed for that, which is unfortunate because Katie gets put into a hospital after being shot after this incident, and she's not even aware of everything that's going around her from there on out.
yeah. Well, she's fatally shot. Really, it doesn't look like she's actually brain dead for the most part at
Yeah,
that point. But she's like in a coma, but they said that she's pretty much brain dead and she's not
yeah.
going to recover from it. Might as well, but it's just pretty much an organ donor at that point. But she kills the other girl pretty good. She shoots her right in the head.
Yeah, while Jessup, who reluctantly survives in the hospital as well. This plays into the whole thing, which is why Dave was saying that most of this movie takes place in the hospital because Kate Sullivan's in the hospital, being kept alive by machines,
Yeah,
brain dead, and Jessup is there, and he brings up. Him and his unscrupulous lawyers try to bring up a lawsuit against the city, because the unscrupulous news cameramen have kind of spliced together footage of the incident, claiming that it was Kate Sullivan's fault that these people were injured and killed and all that type of stuff. So it becomes a film that also has unscrupulous news reporting, like no one
yeah,
bothers to actually tell the
yeah,
truth. To sensationalize the
yeah.
story of
Right,
they
yeah,
gave Maniac Kate. They give her this nickname, Maniac Kate, like the Maniac Cop,
yeah,
another reference to the Maniac Cop that the film plays with. And this all plays in with the overall film because the thing about this film and makes it different than other films, and it brings in your point with the Bride of Frankenstein, is the fact that for some odd reason, uh, Matt Cordell finds a kindred spirit in Kate Sullivan, and he more or less holds vigil over her comatose body.
Yeah.
Uh, which is odd because he more or less kills anyone who gets in the way of
Yeah.
her recovery. But
Right. Yeah. He's protecting
he's
her
protecting.
and her reputation because she'll kill like an asshole doctor. She'll kill like two asshole doctors. And then the attorneys or who's ever in the way of the problem.
Yeah. But when you're watching this, it's a much different film than the other films. And we bring back McKinney. McKinney is plays. Robert Davi plays McKinney again, and McKinney is a much
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
type of character than he was in the first one because of that whole mentor-mentee relationship he had with Kate Sullivan. Um, he's
Yeah. And he starts. There's a doctor at the doctor's, Dr. Susan Fowler. He starts having a kind of flirty thing with her, and it's kind of built throughout the films.
it's odd because it's like I said before when we were talking about the second film, McKinney's character goes from being this gruff Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry type character to in this film in which he has these he makes note that Sullivan's like his baby sister, and of
Yeah.
course he knows her mother, and he starts having this relationship with the doctor. Is like, okay, so this is not exactly what the kind of character we had in the second film. It's interesting to see Robert Davi play these type of angles with the character. They're different, and he's not so much after a maniac cop anymore because the murders that he is investigating this time seem to have ritualistic, what do you call them, symbols on the
Yeah.
sites, which
Right. Yeah.
which is odd at first, but then he goes to see Hugon, um, because he's been studying up on this supernatural stuff, having dealt with Cordell in the second movie.
Yeah. Well, the first body they found is the head. Hugon has to use this head to bring Matt Cordell back, so he has to stab this head with a knife, and then
Mm.
the head's missing from the body, but he put this chicken foot in the neck to make it so the soul would it wouldn't screw the soul up of the body. But they also said that they didn't think that he killed the guy, that he was already dead to begin with, and he just needed his head for
Yeah,
the ritual. But yeah.
it's not exactly like concrete what that is at the beginning, but it soon becomes a modus operandi with Matt Cordell because he every time he goes to certain locations, we see these symbols, these hoodoo symbols, and we think that it is Hugon who's guiding Matt Cordell. We don't know why exactly, but at least I couldn't figure out why. He just seems to be doing it, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Later on in the film, when after Kate Sullivan, who's in a comatose vegetable state, has her little nightmare sequence, you kind of get more of the supernatural feeling of the film because she should have never had a nightmare sequence, much less had a nightmare sequence that had Matt Cordell in it, in which she never met him. Uh, you
but
start feeling all
yeah, I think
yeah
that can be explained a little bit from what I was saying before, that there is a
yes
presence that this maniac cop brings with him that's just felt in a way that's not a supernatural type of
mm-hmm.
type of draw. Him just being around her, but again, she is brain dead, so maybe. But I don't know. I don't know. It's
No,
a
no,
movie, so
no, I agree with you on that one. I agree with you on that one
yeah,
because essentially Matt Cordell is in the room with her when she's having this nightmare, and McKinney's in there too. But Matt Cordell is in the background, which I thought was actually really
yeah,
well filmed sequence where when she doesn't wake up, but when McKinney wakes up, he steps back into the shadows, and then of course McKinney never notices he was
yeah.
ever there to begin with. Um,
Right, right. That is cool. It's a cool shot, and
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a cool shot. It reminded
yeah,
me a lot of Michael Myers, what they did in the
yeah,
first Halloween, where he would step in and out of shadows, and the other people would never know he's doing all this type of stuff. I actually really like that whole sequence there. I always thought it was very weird that he'd be able to do that as big as he is and be quiet. But then I forgot that there are tunnels that he's been traveling to between the hospital and Hugon's lair, which I believe is a large mausoleum or something that's 2 stories
Yeah.
tall in the graveyard. So
Part
I
of,
think it's,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
you
so.
know,
It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of a cool idea to have the tunnels under the hospital.
hmm
Very, very dangerous hospital to be.
it's an old hospital. What do you expect, you know? But those aspects are what makes this a much different type of film than the second film, because the Maniac Cop is being kind of drawn into this other story. Now, of course, after the um, initial nightmare sequence that she
When
has,
things come up from below, like
I can't hear you
whether
too
it
well
be
there.
homeless people or people wanting to steal things or what, you know.
Yeah, yeah, you went out for a few moments there, Dave. So, which is want to happen sometimes. But you're good now. So, were you able to keep up with me?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Uh,
So,
Kind of. I don't know what's going on. Some weird weather events going on over here, but it's all good
okay.
though.
Okay. Good.
Uh, yeah. So yeah,
No, no, I was just discussing the fact that after Sullivan's nightmare sequence and the Maniac Cop in this whole film changes because now Matt Cordell has found this kindred spirit and he wants her for himself, so to speak. But in order to do that, he has to protect her from the doctors who want to take her. Well, first the first Doctor, which is played by Doug Savant, which I've forgotten too. It's fun seeing him
yeah.
in this movie because he's a really dedicated, unscrupulous doctor who thinks he's God.
What
Um,
what what do you recognize Doug Savant from when you see him?
he had that what was it? I don't want to say Melrose Place, whichever the show he got famous from, and then he played in a recent show that I had seen him in as well. You making me look him up
You
again.
know, yeah, yeah. I know. I
Oh,
recognize him from Desperate
Desperate
Housewives. He plays
Housewives.
like one of the husbands. He's actually
Yeah, yeah.
quite funny on that show.
Yeah, yeah, but he's done a lot of stuff, and I watched Desperate
Yeah.
Housewives the entire time it was out. Uh, so
Yeah, I mean, I actually like that. I like that show. It kind of got ridiculous after a while, but it was really strong for the first couple of seasons. Like the scripts were,
it's supposed to be ridiculous. That's what it's supposed to
yeah.
be.
But he's yeah, you'd say play like Tom like Lynette's wife, but he was funny though in the show.
He he's a television actor who's done a crap ton of television, so you'll
Yeah,
recognize him in various things here and there. But that being said, it's fun to watch him be this type of character, and then of course he gets off after he's having sex with one of the fellow nurses. He gets shocked to death by Matt Cordell, but then of course they bring in another doctor to take over that case, and it happens to be Robert Forster. So it's even much more fun
yeah,
to watch. Uh,
yeah.
he's only in it
Yeah.
for a few scenes, like he was
Right,
in Uncle Sam when we discussed Uncle Sam. He's not
right.
in it all that much,
The,
but
the when the first time you see him, that scene that he's first in, that's an awesome shot too. There's like a steady cam shot that
mhm,
goes through the doc. He like Paul Gleason's in it as well in that same scene, and they're talking about Paul Gleason's trying to get her taken off of life support so
mhm.
they can get her, I guess, get her organs or whatnot. Real sleazy lawyer type, but
Yeah, well,
it's a cool scene though.
he doesn't. Yeah, yeah. It's a really cool scene where you see Robert Forster go through each of the patients. It says, "I gotta be on the floor every once in a while to show my face," type of attitude. So here it is, and then of course he says to Gleason's character that, "Oh yeah, yeah, we'll take care of this. Take her off. We'll get this paperwork signed right now. Can I get tickets to the basketball game?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you scratch my back, I scratch your back."
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah.
uh, which then, of course, because of this whole thing, leads to Matt Cordell killing him. For some reason, I can't remember how he dies.
He puts him in the X-ray machine and melts him.
That's right.
It's pretty crazy. This was originally like I don't understand it, but it was apparently rated NC-17, but it's not. that violent or gross to me. I don't understand how that can be. Just seeing what's on screen, even on the
Yes.
unrated version of it, it's not that bad.
Huh, that is interesting. Well, I hate to tell you this, but besides it being a William Lustig and Larry Cohen film, and it being the early '90s, which we all know '90s had, they went to that time where they were trying to censor all the horror movies back then, and this was a straight to DVD, straight to video film. So I would have
Yeah,
thought that they wouldn't even have cared,
yeah.
to be honest with you. Um, they could have just released it the way it was on video. But who knows? I know if it was not rated, it wouldn't have been able to be rented at Blockbuster. That's about all I know.
Yeah, yeah. But I think they rated NC-17, but it doesn't like appear to be NC-17 to me, but I might just be like,
No,
yeah.
I did not
Yeah,
know that, and it does. There's nothing in this movie that makes it seem like it should be NC-17. Nothing.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
maybe the X-ray death was a little bit more gruesome
Yeah.
than what we saw. Uh,
Yeah. Get that in the paddle death with Doug Savant's character, but it's not that much in it though, really, as far as there's violence and things of that nature, but there's not like really extensive amount of gore just in it or anything of that
no,
nature. There's not even
no,
any nudity, I don't think, in this one.
no. There's no strip joint in this one like there was in the
Yeah,
second one.
yeah,
This was a much tamer film, and I know this isn't. I don't think this is fact. I always thought that these movies were shot back to back because when you get those sequels like this where they're almost back to back, you have this really strong first sequel. And then the second sequel is usually like, okay, we ran out of money, so everything's a lot less is it elaborate as the one before.
yeah,
Because I remember there being a car chase scene in this one, but I don't
yeah.
remember it being nearly as elaborate as in the last movie.
Yeah, the car chase scene in this one's awesome though, because the
Uh,
Maniac cop's on fire during the whole friggin'
oh, the
sequence.
ending,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the ending. See, I almost forgot about it. So
Yeah, no,
this one
it's
has
it's
to
that's bad. That's like one of the best scenes I think of the franchise.
when you think the movies, and this is probably the one time where Robert Davi actually does confront the Maniac cop. Uh,
Yeah, he does more action in this movie than he
yes, he
does in the
does.
second one. He's more active.
Yes,
What?
yes.
Yeah,
Well, because he's trying to. Well, okay. So we got to the point where the doctors are all dead, and Matt Cordell has stopped them from taking her off life support, Katie Sullivan off life support, but that's not enough for him. At some point, the idea is that he wants to resurrect her like he was resurrected, but he needs Hugon and the body to do that. So he takes her out of off of life support and takes her directly to Hugon through the tunnels of the hospital. At which point, this is when McKinney shows back up, and McKinney, uh, she at this point he believes she's because she's been off life support for longer than 5-10 minutes. She's dead as a door now. But Matt should not desecrate her body doing what he wants the Hugon to do. Of course, when the Hugon decides to do it, he can't raise her back from the dead because she doesn't want to be raised back from the dead, like Matt Cordell does. So she doesn't come back to life. Matt Cordell goes a little bit nutty nutballs because he immediately kills the Hugon, and then we
right.
have this great fire sequence.
Yeah.
Uh,
The fire sequences are really unique to these, and they even like I don't, not in the first one, but even in Uncle Sam though. Remember, like Lustig called Uncle Sam on fire for a
mm-hmm.
long time as well. He really liked doing that for some reason.
It might be the same stunt guy that he's
Yeah,
good friends with. And he says, do you mind getting put on fire again? No, William, nah, we go ahead and do that. And so he sticks that in all of his movies just so he could put someone on fire because it's really cool.
yeah, and it goes on for a long time. It's like, damn, somebody needs to put that fire out,
No, but you're right. This one, because the chase sequence comes at the end, I almost forgot about it. The fire, they think that Matt's dead and Kate's gone, and they think they're driving away, thinking that
Yeah,
the world's good, and Matt Cordell shows up still on fire
But
driving a
they're
car.
yeah, they're in an ambulance driving away, and like the doctor, she's injured, and like the Kenny McKinney's in there with her, and then he just comes up and attacks the ambulance all on fire.
That is
Yeah,
you're right. That is an amazing sequence to watch because he Matt Cordell hasn't given up. He is not giving up. You think that he could just say, "Okay, they bested me. Let me go cool down and get myself off of fire, and
yeah.
then go from here." But
I
he's
mean,
really freaking pissed.
yeah. I mean, Matt Cordell doesn't. I don't guess he was in school when they were doing stop, drop, and roll because he never does it. I
He
mean,
never does.
just you put that fire out, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing is, to be honest with you, this sequence at the end is the only one in which it seems like the Hugon has no control over Matt Cordell whatsoever. For the rest, for most of the early parts of the film, it almost seems like there is some type of control that the Hugon has over Matt, which is why we always see these symbols everywhere where Matt goes. But after he is dead, it seems like all bets are off. Matt will do whatever the hell he wants to do, and that's what he does. Now, that plays
Yeah.
into like Matt's Cordell's his motivation for this film is completely different than in the other two films. But I don't know. The only way I can describe that is the law of the third film in the franchise. They always try to do something different than what came before then in hopes that audiences will like the differences. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I've got some information, which I'll tell you about here in a second.
oh, is it that time
Yeah,
already? Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
Well, I think we're pretty close. I do want to mention one other scene though.
Yeah.
Um, when Jackie Earle Haley's character, they bring him, they go in there and they get him, and apparently there's some other people who are supposed to be under arrest in the hospital, and they kind of do like what happens in Maniac Cop 2, and then they get out the guns and they're shooting people and stuff, and suddenly there's this gurney that mysteriously comes like wheeling down the hallway of the hospital, and it's like Robert Davi's character under it. And he starts shooting them. It's a really creepy scene, but it's a really bizarre scene.
So it's bizarre for multiple. I'm gonna go back a little bit further because you brought up that, and I wanted to bring that up too. Uh, Jessup is in the hospital after he gets captured by the cops. Is in the hospital for the entire time, and we see him periodically in these short scenes throughout the whole movie. But Cordell goes in and kind of manipulates everyone and frees Jessup and gives him a gun, hoping that he will
Yeah.
do his thing, which he does. He does as soon as he lets loose all the criminals in that room, and they go on a killing spree. They go on a killing spree in that freaking hospital. And of course, the cool thing is when like you said, McKinney's got the gurneys is slowly coming down the
It's
hallway.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool stuff. That's a pretty risky move for McKinney to do, but it makes for a cool scene, you know. Can you imagine if they just shot the gurney?
Well, that's the thing is they think about shooting it, they don't
Yeah,
shoot it, and then before they can say, "Okay, let's shoot it,"
yeah,
they get shot. Um, and
yeah,
Jessup is the only one that survives that section. Of course, McKinney has to go after Jessup, get rid of Jessup before he goes after Matt. Um, because Kate's gone from the hospital, and
yeah.
we haven't talked much about the other doctor, which is what's her name?
It's
The other
Susan Fowler, right?
Susan
Yes,
Fowler.
yeah, yeah,
Fowler, who is kind of like the Claudia Christian character in the last movie,
right,
but
right.
she is she's the doctor that's at odds with McKinney at first because she is Jessup's doctor. Is that right? Jessup's doctor. Yeah, she's Jessup's doctor, and of course, when we first see McKinney and Jessup interact, he's trying to get information out of Jessup about telling the truth about what happened to Sullivan when she was shot. And of course, that puts him on a bad, puts I forgot her name again, Fowler
Seth
and
Fowler, yeah,
Fowler and McKinney at odds at first. But over
right.
the course of all this stuff that's going on in the hospital, she does her own little investigation. She goes down because she thinks she sees a strange cop. She doesn't know it's Matt Cordell yet. She thinks there's a strange cop lurking on the floor, and so she goes in her own little investigation. She goes down to the tunnels, and that's where they set up the whole tunnels in between this everything. Um, but it's nice to see that the doctor her is she's very interested in what's going on around her, which makes her much more interesting character for when she teams up with McKinney later on, because she's at odds with McKinney at the first part of the film because she's Jessup's doctor. And of course, Doug Savant's character is Sullivan's doctor. So if they had switched them, it'd be just right. But this is the conflict that's created in the movie. So it's a really nice dynamic that they do in this film, because in the first film or in the second film, Christian's character and McKinney are on the same page more or less.
Right. And
But
unlike the second one, it wasn't played as a romantic
no,
thing, where this one is played more towards that direction.
yeah, which is interesting. Which is, I guess, like I said, it's the third movie in the franchise. So what they play up with different things. Like, let's make McKinney more vulnerable. Let's make him
Yeah.
much more emotional to what's going on. You see him in the hospital with Sullivan, like he falls asleep, and they like that's not a scene that you'd see in the second film, but you definitely see that type of scenes in the third film. And of course you have the interaction between McKinney and Sullivan's mother. You know,
Yeah.
those type of scenes make him more vulnerable and empathetic as a character, because he's seeing his little sister, as he calls her, on
Yeah.
in the vegetative state. So
And I mean, I think upon watching it, I think all of that works when you're watching it. But but it wasn't the way that it was supposed to be originally. And and I mean, really, like once it was like revealed what way it was supposed to be, it's like definitely none of that was supposed to happen with McKinney's character.
hmm.
But when you're looking at the opening credits of the film, it says it's directed by Alan Smithy. Do you see that?
No, I did not notice
Yeah.
that.
You know what that means, right?
Yes, I do. I did
Yeah,
not
yeah.
notice it though.
Yeah, so it's directed by Alan Smithy, which is that's what happens when someone doesn't want to be credited. It's a fake name.
Yeah.
That's yeah. So it's the directors just owned the film or didn't want to be credited for, and that's the way it says in the opening credits.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
You know what? I just never noticed it
yeah,
because I always knew it was William Lustig who did it.
yeah.
I just
Right.
didn't realize that. Wow. Okay, so now you have to tell me some of this
Yeah.
stuff that you know.
So it's a big so before that ever happened. So Larry Cohen wrote the script for Maniac Cop 3. The main character was a black detective in Harlem, and that was the location. That was where everything took place. The investors didn't want the character to be black, but the Japanese they didn't think it would play good in Japan, so they said he needed Robert Davi back, and he didn't want Robert Davi back. He wanted it to do it the way it was written, but they ended up having to do it to get the money. And so then they got Robert Davi, but then they were like, okay, now we got to rewrite the script for Robert Davi, and Larry Cohen said, well, I'm gonna need more money, and they wouldn't pay him anymore. So they had to take the script that he had and shoot it while they were going and change it as they were going without the writer's input. And so so that was, and then they shot everything they could with the original script. They had to cut stuff out that didn't make sense as it went on, and they ended up with like 45 minutes worth of finished footage cut together.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was like 45 minutes long, and they're like, we need it to be an hour and 20 minutes at least, you know. And so they went to William Lustig, and they're like, we're gonna need to add more scenes. And then they had ideas about the scenes they wanted to add, that including like all the romance stuff between Robert Davi's character and the doctor character, and him being knowing the girl and being like a father figure to her. All that was added. But William Lustig didn't like those scenes. He's like, I'm not directing these scenes. and he left the project. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so like 30, what was it like? About 30 minutes or 35 minutes of the film was directed by the producer, co-producer Joel Swanson. So all those scenes, including if you listen to the commentary, they could tell you which scene. Him and the producer are talking together in the commentary on the Blu-ray, and you're getting along pretty good now. But they were kind of at hill at
Mm.
But this producer wasn't the main producer; he was a co-producer, and he kind of had this handed to him, and so he had to like basically write the scenes and direct them. And Robert Davi was into it because he liked all those romantic scenes. But like William Lustig thought that was a terrible idea. But he also
Wow.
shot a bunch of B-roll. If you notice in the first like 30 minutes, there's a bunch of Maniac Cop just walking around
Yeah.
aimlessly almost. He had to he shot all that, which William Lustig didn't like the way the Maniac Cop was shot there. And it's interesting. He's like talking to him about it. But it's funny because I didn't know, like when I was watching it, if you didn't know about it, you wouldn't necessarily notice it. And I actually kind of liked those scenes when I was watching it. I mean, I thought
Hmm.
the added stuff between Davi and the girl, both the girls, I thought it added to it. I thought it added to the like personal touch to it. And that's something you don't really get as much in the other two films, that kind of
No,
personal touch.
no, I agree. I agree with you. I think that's why it's so different watching the second and third movie because you don't get that from the second movie at all. But you
Right.
get a lot of that in the third movie.
So that's not Larry Cohen or William Lustig, so it's completely foreign, and it's more of a I guess it's more of a mainstream sort of thing because they never wanted that in the film to begin with, but they walked away from it, so what they had to finish the movie. But like again,
Wow.
I like those scenes. Okay, it didn't stick out to me. It seemed
No, they've never stuck out for me. Overall, I just think the films are different, mostly because in the first two films, I never really gave into the fact that Matt Cordell was really like a zombie until the
yeah.
third movie, and so he does what he does because he's being controlled by someone else. Now, when I rewatched the movie, I was like, he's only partially controlled by the Hugan. Yeah, just partially because obviously he kills them when he doesn't get what he wants. I'm glad you mentioned the whole Bride of Frankenstein thing because I never thought about that until
Yeah.
you mentioned it. And so when I rewatch it, I'll probably
Yeah.
be thinking about that from now on because I'm a huge fan of Bride of Frankenstein.
Right. Yeah, that's what they were doing with that, and it works in the movie. I I bet the original script though it probably had a lot better explanation for the hoodoo part
Mm,
because it was a lot more there was like 30 something more minutes of that sort of thing that they had to cut out just because it didn't make sense and that's why Robert Davi's character isn't the same character. He's not written the same.
hmm
He's written like they basically had a new character who's going to be a new detective character that was a completely different character. So he basically he doesn't seem the same. And a
No,
lot like so you got like two different directors too directing him, and Robert Davi's probably directed himself in the scenes when William Lustig wasn't there. I'm sure he was though. He
yeah, I
probably
think
yeah,
I think Joel Swasson. I think he
yeah.
eventually became a director. I keep thinking that name. He directed other movies, but I could be completely and totally wrong with that. Who knows anymore? But
I'm gonna tell you, I'm looking it up. But it's
his that
yeah.
name sounds so familiar to
Well,
me.
he's a yeah, he's got like a pretty good bit of like credits, including like mostly producer and writer, but Pulse, Hollow Man 2. But his director, Children of the Corn Genesis, Pulse 3, Pulse 2 Afterlife. Um, not necessarily great films, but they're not like, but they are pretty impressive, that these kind of made for DVD type of
Yeah.
films.
Well, someone's got to direct those movies.
Yeah.
I'm for
But
everyone listening. I'm sure that me and Dave would love to be that person who's directing these
yeah.
straight to
Oh
DVD
yeah. Yeah,
sequels.
yeah. No doubt I'd be on there, man.
Children of the
But
Corn
yeah.
15. I'll be there. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, yeah. You do like yeah, Pulse 8, I'll do it.
Oh Jesus. I could say I've seen those movies once and I've never seen them more than once.
But
So
yeah, I mean
I know I just that name just sticks out to me. I just couldn't remember
yeah.
what he did.
He's got a lot of
Uh,
credit. What's interesting though is after most of that stuff he did, like I just mentioned before, was kind of no, it was after this thing's back. I'm looking on a page and it's actually backwards and than you would think.
mm,
Hellraiser, Hellworld, story by, but he was in on a bunch of these horror films. And I think he did a pretty good job directing the scenes that he directed, even though it was probably not necessarily him as director. It was more of a like we got to get this thing
shot and
shot, and
done.
like I was saying, Robert Davi probably came out there, was directing himself, probably had a really good time with the scenes that he had more control over.
No, I agree. I didn't think that any of his scenes stand out from William Lustig's. I think the whole film as a whole looks fine as one. Sometimes when you have directors like this, where the director leaves halfway through, what is added definitely does not feel like what else was shot. But this film to me felt, I for the longest time I always thought the same person directed everything. So
Right? Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I'm,
yeah. I mean, you
I
wouldn't
mean,
think that again. I mean, if you really think about it, if you look at his other two movies and Uncle Sam, you see the way the characters act, and they don't
mhm,
act the same in the scenes that he didn't write or didn't direct. Not that that's I mean, the characters act more normal in the scenes that weren't directed by him. I'm not I normal for like a movie, I guess
yeah.
movie normal. Where I think his characters are like Larry Cohen's characters. He guess he's the writer behind it. His characters are always kind of there's a bit of a darkness or satire to him, and there wasn't really a lot. There's usually not like a lot of jokey play type of scenes that are fun to act in, or they're
Mhm.
even kind of fun to watch. You do have this playfulness going on in the scenes that are unique to this film that weren't directed by Lusting or written by Larry Cohen. So
No, no, no. I mean, in hindsight, it's kind of sad that William Lustig wasn't able to finish up the last film completely the way his vision was. I think that the whole Harlem thing and having a different type of detective would have been very interesting for the franchise. Having a like each film has a different detective that you follow. First one had Tom Atkins, second one would have the McKinney character, third one would have a different character. I thought that would have been cool. It's
yeah,
sad that we didn't get to see that, but what we did get, I think, was perfectly fine. I don't think it's like killed the franchise. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know if it killed the franchise or wasn't
yeah.
any more after it, but
Right.
I don't think you could really like people would really want another one after the end of this one. You
Well,
know,
yeah.
Matt Cordell's arm gets ripped off, and then of course he's a burnt up crispy critter with Kate Sullivan's body is also crispy critter lying next to him.
Well, yeah, yeah, but he's still alive though. At the end, there's another cool like he's still alive shot. But I mean, I think that since William Lustig walked away from the film, he wasn't going to be able to do another one. I don't think, and I think they had a hell of a time making this one. And
Hmm.
so, in order to make another one, like someone else would have had to taken the reins on it.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of getting near the end of the straight to DVD stuff when it was successful, and that was why this was successful, and that's why it was on HBO, and it was kind of it had a good run on HBO. I'm sure, like that's what I saw in that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but
If
yeah,
only.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. If I'm thinking about this, and I'm trying now that we've gone to the end of the or discussed each film in the franchise. And this franchise, Maniac Cop, only did three. There has not been a remake yet, although we have discussed that there has been talks occasionally about them doing a remake and how we think a remake would be really well suited and could come about. But there hasn't been one, so we can only discuss the three that have been released. Now that I know this about the final film and exactly what happened, um, do you think that this makes for a good, satisfying trilogy of films that someone could sit down and watch and then be satisfied with the end? Or do you see that there was any major problems? Anything like that, Dave?
yeah. Well, yeah, like before I knew about it, I didn't know about it, just like you didn't. I was
No.
surprised because I didn't know about it. So I mean, I think it works as a trilogy. I mean, I've been like, I think the last like 30 minutes of this one are really awesome. Starting with that when the prisoners get released in the gurney scene, and then go down and try to resurrect the girl, and then followed by that on fire chase scene. It's like really awesome. Like maybe the last 30 minutes of it.
Well, it amps up the action aspect of the film, but it still has that whole. This one actually, we've discussed the distinct sections of the first two films. This one really doesn't have that. It kind of plays with the same thing from beginning to end in this film. It doesn't seem to make any large shifts in tone or mood like the first two movies do. And
Right.
I think that makes for a better end cap to the whole series. I do think that having a huge fiery ending like this one does
Yeah.
makes for a really damn good climax.
Right. Yeah. That's so it's really impressive that part. You know what's hilarious after that Maniac Cop's hands on the ground and the Robert Davi's character picks it up and lights a
Yeah.
cigarette with it. That's that's great when that happens. Yes.
Yeah, well, that yeah. I forgot. I forgotten he had done that, and I'm like, oh Jesus!
Yeah.
And then of course he throws that hand back in with the rest of the fireball of a car to burn up. And of course, it only burns up so much because then we see the bodies on the gurneys being taken to the morgue right next to each other. You know.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that scene pretty good from seeing it originally, just that
Yeah.
last shot. That was kind of like what they did in most of those horror films, but they actually do it in all three of the Maniac Cop films.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty awesome way to end any of them, you know. I
Yeah.
think you
No.
almost have to keep doing that, and even if you're not going to have a sequel to a Maniac Cop, that's
No, it actually reminds me of when um, Jim Adams, one of our other special guests for the show, and I were discussing the trilogy, the first three films in the Poltergeist legacy, the first three films in that series, and the
yeah,
way they ended it. The villain gets sent off to wherever he's supposed to go, and then of course the last movie, the third movie, Poltergeist 3, has to have that little maybe Kane isn't vanquished, isn't sent to the place he's supposed to go to, and he may come back. I was like, oh Jesus! It doesn't matter if the story is resolved. You have to give audiences that little bitty something in case the movie
yeah,
makes too much money, and you have to go back to the drawing board and create a sequel. We all.
yeah.
It's the whole thing about franchises. We all know it ain't never the end.
Right. Yeah. Very true. Very true. That's gonna be one burnt Maniac Cop if they did a fourth one of these. Yeah. If you look at
Oh Jesus!
he's already
I
pretty burnt, and now it's
what I like to do is I tell people, yeah, well, you know what? The Scream movies tend to kill off every one of the villains in every movie, but we saw Robert Urich, whatever the heck his last name is. I always forget how you pronounce it. Skeet Urich.
Skeet Ulrich. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Skeet Urich. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skeet
Yeah.
Urich returns for the last. Was he in both the last two or just one of them?
He was in both the
As the
last two.
okay,
It was like a dream thing, though, wasn't it? It's
like
yeah.
she's like seeing her so-called father.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, okay, that's a good way to bring him back. And of course, the new one's gonna bring back all the people who are dead. I'm like, yeah, you just can't keep a good villain down or keep victims down because a sequel will allow you to do whatever you want to do, pretty much. Hey, Maniac Cop 4 could be a prequel, show the whole sequence of how Matt Cordell got into prison and was killed to begin with. That's where you go. They haven't done that yet.
Yeah. I think what they'll do is they'll do a remake of it if they do it. It would be nice if they did the remake for have the feel of Maniac Cop 2 and 3. I think the scenes that were directed by Leslie Lustig specifically in this one do have the same feel of Maniac Cop 2. He was definitely got had something going with that.
Mm,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
pretty creepy looking in those two, the cop character.
No, no, I'm not. I won't disagree with you on that one. I, as a trilogy, I think the three films make for a pretty damn good trilogy. Now, I think that these films will appeal to more than just a straightforward horror audience. I do think that if there's someone who out there who just wants a straightforward horror movie, this probably is not the best one out there for you.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to give this one a chance because it takes a lot of chances with the type of movie that is being presented, which I think helps the film and the franchise overall. So I want people to think of it that way. Like, where would you see some of these romantic ideologies in a film, a horror film like this? Normally, you would see that in a cop movie. The cop movie, the cop usually is someone who had very bad relationships beforehand, and he meets that woman who just gets him back into the groove of things. By the end, he has to save her. And that's what this is. It does come off a little bit more typical of a
Yeah.
cop movie, which Lustig and Cohen kind of avoided in the first two movies. But I think it works as a capper of the trilogy because he didn't kill all the cops in this film, and he didn't kill McKinney at the very beginning, and McKinney
Yeah.
has become like the hero in these two movies. Like
Yeah.
these,
Yeah.
which is why I say it would
Yeah.
be interesting if they went with the original script that had a different cop. So each film had a different cop at the center.
Yeah, I do like the idea of in these franchises of having like a good hero type of character, kind of like from, in the Evil Dead films, and they kind of started doing it in Friday the 13th for like
Mm-hmm.
three of the films, but I do like that idea, but it seemed like they were really pushing back on that idea because it didn't seem like they really wanted like especially in one and two, they didn't want like a true hero for the franchise.
Mm. You know what? That's a good point to make because of how little McKinney interacts with Matt Cordell in the second film. But in this
Yeah,
film, that's a huge chunk of the last third of the film, and which makes it so dynamic. So if you're someone who is waiting for McKinney to have a big confrontation with Cordell in the second film, and it doesn't happen, then you will love this movie, the third one, because he has a really nice
yeah,
confrontation, and it would be like the second film and most of the third films build up to that the confrontation at the end.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think this one really does deliver on the promise that was kind of set up in the second one of was it McKinney and the Maniac cop actually interacting. I think especially the last 30 minutes of this really delivers
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
yeah. No. I agree. I agree. So, uh, any more thoughts on Maniac Cop 3? Is there anything that we need to that we had not picked up on?
I think probably, but nothing I can think of like off the top of my head.
Well,
Yeah.
my goal is kind of touched upon a lot of the aspects of this film, but I wanted us to make sure we touched upon aspects that kind of links every one of the films in the franchise because, like I said, with the show, people are going to be listening to each one of these episodes and kind of getting the ideal of what we think across the board with all these films. And what better way to do that in the last film of the franchise? Kind of summing up what we think of the whole franchise as a whole and what we think was good, what we think is bad. This one just happened to have that whole thing where the third movie, which we didn't know,
Yeah.
had a whole other
Yeah.
set of
Well,
problems.
I think that might happen in a lot of movies, though, really. There's like behind the scenes stuff that we don't know. We're just assuming the fucking writers are just out of their minds. But I think it has to do with I think it has to do with like producers and investors wanting something that doesn't make sense that you just have to give to them because they're the ones paying for the movie.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't disagree with you on that. And that's something I think is a problem with a lot of sequels, why they get criticized for being, oh, you just the same things you did in the last sequel. You know,
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah,
it's a criticism, especially on horror film sequels. It is a huge criticism for horror film sequels. Uh, Anyone that's lasted more than three, people tend to think that they're running out of ideals. Friday the
yeah,
13th was that way. Nightmare on Elm Street was that way. Saw was that way. You just keep watching them. And the Paranormal Activity is a newer one. You keep coming in with these ideals, and they're so similar to ideals that were in previous films that that by the time you get to the last couple of sequels, they tend to feel like you've seen it all before, done better in some of the earlier films, and then these sequels become kind of eh, and that's why so many
Yeah,
people
right.
don't
Yeah.
watch them. You know,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, that's my opinion. I just think that people lose faith with certain franchises.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's not another thing too. If you haven't seen the other ones, and all of a sudden the third or fourth one's coming out, and you're like, shit, I haven't even seen the other ones yet, or I hadn't seen the second one, and here's the third one. I don't have time to go watch the second one before watching it. So
yeah,
I think that might happen sometimes.
except for you because you watched the third one first.
Yeah, there you go. Well, sometimes it's better to watch the later ones first because like you say they repeat the ideas and you see like maybe it may not be done better, but sometimes it may like Maniac Cop 2 has some ideas that were kind of in the first one that are done better in the second one.
Hmm.
So sometimes you might see something like that and you go back and watch the first one, you're like, wow, they didn't even have any fire in that one. The Maniac Cop he's not even on fire like for 30 minutes.
Oh Jesus. Oh shit. All right. So with that, I want everyone to kind of get an ideal that when you're watching the Maniac Cop films, that we want you to kind of take a little chance with all three of them if you haven't seen all three of them before. I know a lot of you probably have definitely seen the first one, but take a chance on the second and third one. They're actually pretty damn good films. And if you've been listening to me and Dave talk about these movies, we actually think the second one's a much stronger film overall. Third film has some issues. We all discussed those. We have bigger issues that I was even aware of. Uh, but I don't think it's on par as being like a horrible sequel. Like we have all seen plenty of bad sequels in a franchise. I I am dreading the day when we at Conversations in Horror decided to let's just take apart the Children of the Corn franchise
Yeah,
because
yeah,
most of those are pretty freaking bad. But yet
yeah.
they keep making them. Um,
Yeah, I don't think I watched anything. I actually liked the second one when I saw it. I don't think I watched anything past the second one. I think I might have saw part of one of the other ones, but I don't know.
for everyone out there, me and David discussed this before, and I actually mentioned to him that I've seen every one of the Children of the Corn films.
Yeah,
So it is a undertaking. We think that the franchise month that we are presenting now is an undertaking. It takes a lot of time and effort to go through and kind of watch all these sequels to these franchises. You don't have to. We hope that you will at least be curious about them, but you don't have to. There's a reason why there's what 10 Friday 13th movies. Actually, I think there's like 11 or 12 by now. I think they're hitting at 13 almost. And Saw sequels, which seem never ending. And we discussed
yeah,
those before. They're just never ending, never ending. And
yeah,
even if they do end, like, I still know what you did last summer. I'll always know what you did last summer. There's always going to be a remake, reboot, reevaluation. You know, the new one's coming out this year. We also had Final Destination Bloodlines almost 15 years after the previous one. You know,
yeah.
it's part of our framework, our DNA when it comes to the horror genre that we do sequels more so than any other genre out there.
They
Um,
got they got that new scam that they're doing where them like Scream instead of calling it like Scream 6 or I still know what you did last summer, 3 or 4 or whatever. They're
yeah,
just calling it the original name again. Let's
yeah.
call it Scream or I know what you did last summer, making people think making people who are maybe younger who aren't that familiar with it thinking it's the first one. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it's been going on for a while because you got to remember the prequel slash sequel to John Carpenter's The Thing. It's just called The Thing.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Right.
you get people confused on which one you're talking about. But that's never going to change. That's never going to
Yeah.
change. Our horror genre is made up and thrives due to sequels and remakes and reboots and legacy sequels. You don't see anyone. Oh, I was about to say a legacy sequel for an action film, but we did get Top Gun Maverick a couple years back. So
Yeah. Which was really good. I saw it in the
uh,
theater. Yeah. Did you see it in the theater?
I have yet to actually see it. I have
Oh,
not
it's just
seen it.
really good, man. It's I don't know how it's gonna play on TV, but I saw it in the theater, man. It was like some of those scenes with those airplanes and shit. That was great, man.
It's on my list. I hadn't seen it because I
Yeah,
missed it at the theater.
yeah,
Because I wanted to see it on the IMAX and I missed it, and so therefore I haven't gone back to watch it yet. I know
right.
I'm bad, but at
Yeah,
least I've seen at least I've seen all the horror movies, right?
yeah. There you go.
So I make up for.
Yeah, yeah.
So with that, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. We're going to rate the movie now. We do that for every movie that we watch. We rate it between 1 star and 5 stars, one being 4, 5 stars being amazing and excellent. Where on the spectrum, Dave, do you place Maniac Cop 3 Badge of Silence?
So this one's tough. I'm going to land it at 3, just like I put the first one at 3 and the two at 3.5. But it's obviously not as good as the first one. But it's not as good. But it also has some of the best scenes of any of the Maniac Cop films in it. So I think there's a good 45 minutes of really good stuff here, and then there's some okay stuff, and there's some things that don't make sense, but it works. So I'm going to give it a 3.
I'm gonna give it a 3 too because I gave the other one. I think the second one 3.5. I think I
Yeah.
gave the fourth. I can't remember what we did with the fourth one. I mean the first one. But this one right here, I'm gonna give it 3 only because I like some of. I love the ending, like you mentioned, but I still think the cinematography is strong in this film. I do like the Bride of Frankenstein reference. If you had not made it, I would not have thought about it, and it now has. When I rewatched it again, I'm gonna rewatch it for some of those type of
Yeah.
parallels in
Yeah.
there. I do not think that the overall story of keeping it in the hospital was like most of it in the hospital was cool, and I wish I had known why the hell Hugon decided to resurrect Matt Cordell in the first fucking place.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something that just bothers me. Like sometimes the stuff doesn't bother me, but that one just bothered me. I was like, why? The big why. So I'm
Yeah.
going to give it a three stars, and leave it at that. It's not as bad as some of the other sequels that we haven't gotten to yet in other franchises. Like I said, there are plenty of sequels out there that only range for 1 star. We'll get to those maybe one day. I thankfully have not given a 1 star to any film we've talked about yet. So let's hope that we continue on this trend of doing at least decent movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I don't want to. I am not looking forward to the day where we have to do. And I've mentioned this film before, but Birdemic on our program.
What'd you call it?
Birdemic.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. I was like, that sounds terrible. I never heard of
It's by God.
it.
Oh, you haven't heard about this movie? Okay, dude.
But
It is a cult movie. I won't say classic. It is a cult movie for no apparent reason other than being one of the worst movies ever made. Like
okay, yeah.
literally one of the worst movies. And it
Okay,
had
yeah.
2 sequels. It had 2 sequels. I
Birdemic.
yeah, I threatened Jim Adams with it. I said, Jim, we're gonna watch Birdemic just to say we've discussed the worst movie and franchise ever. Uh,
Yeah. Well, sometimes I think I'm going to rate something lower. Like if I was just to watch something, a lot of times we watch things with like high expectations and they're not met when we watch. Like Maniac Cop, it doesn't necessarily meet the expectations as you're watching it, but that's kind of the cool thing because it does things that you're not expecting.
mhm.
But like once it's more of a once you start thinking about it more, or if I start looking more into it, or listen to the commentary, or look at it like if you watch some behind the scenes stuff, you have a better appreciation for what they accomplished within the film a lot of times.
Mhm. Yeah,
Even
and
yeah, yeah,
well, no, that's one of the things I was gonna say. That's one of the great things why we have you on the show. You tell us these things because you've listened to the extra commentaries and watched some of the behind the scenes videos on the Blu-rays and the DVDs and stuff like that. Some of the guests in the show don't always do that. It's like this is the reason why we have different guests. Each guest that comes on the show has a different aspect and tackles these films in a different way, and that's what we like on this show. So. With that, I'm going to thank you, Dave, for joining us on Conversation in Horror as we discuss Maniac Cop 3. Everyone out there who's listening, please make sure to check out the other episodes and the other episodes based on the movies in this franchise. Also, make sure to check out our other franchise themed dates as well because we have some amazing films and franchises that we are discussing this month. through all the month. I know it's a lot of episodes, a lot of movies, but we hope that you take the time out to listen to them because they're all entertaining. With that, I want to make sure that you like, follow, share, do that thing you do with your favorite podcast on your favorite podcast apps, Spotify and YouTube, and make sure to check out our sister page, our sister podcast, Conversations in Full Color, which is on manga, comic books, and graphic novels. That is on our Patreon exclusive site, so you have to be a subscriber for that. With that, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show, and have a pleasant day, everyone.
Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.